Hey guys, what's up? Excoundrel here. Today we're going to be looking at Update 2.7 notes because Update 2.7 is launching today. So that's a really cool thing. We've been waiting a long time for it. Loads of quality of life changes were going into this update. I know SCMC have been working really hard on those, but let's get down to what I really care about, the balance changes. I will do a little bit on the end about the new hero and how I think, what can I think of him, but right now let's focus on the heroes and the item changes, and we can go through them together. Now, for those of you who are wondering about other videos that are more guidey, doing my CP item guide part 2, believe it or not, yes, I am actually doing that. I got about halfway through it today, but I'm hosting VGL tonight, so I wanted to do a quick video that I know I could finish and put out. And again, I forgot about this. I do like to do these update note videos. A little bit more boring than usual, but it's sometimes nice to listen to, and you guys can also get an idea about the update going forward. Let's start with Baron. Now, Baron, this already happened. So this part already happened. The basic attack nerf, that was already there. Still means Baron's good. Honestly, 5% nerf to his weapon power scaling is practically nothing. Unless they meant to do this again from 125 to 120, but I'm going to take it at face value. This is the invisible CC immunity that he got after he finished his jump. It was really annoying as a Catherine to have to chase down a Baron only to have him for 1 second after landing block your stun for free. This will make Baron easier to focus in compositions that are designed to focus a Baron, but realistically, he's still going to get banned. He's still going to be up there as one of the best carries, just simply because he still hits like a truck. And this wasn't really the main reason you overdrove jump jets. Jump jets you overdrove for the channel of jump jets and then getting out of things during the jump. So it's definitely a nerf that's nice, but it's not enough to put Baron down there. I still think we'll see him getting banned, and anything I'd still recommend to ban him. These Blackfeather changes were really interesting. Rose Trails removed. On the overdrive, it gives you a burst of decaying movement speed, so that makes it easier for Blackfeather to chase down his targets, but less easy for his team to do that. And now it makes his on-point slow more per heartthrob stack. So actually, as an individual hero, this makes Blackfeather better. Individually, Blackfeather is kind of better now. But he now doesn't work as well in dive compositions where he is the one trying to provide that avenue to run down a carry. So individually, this has made Blackfeather better. He will be able, as an individual, I'm going to keep saying that, as an individual hero, to chase down carries a bit better, but he will not facilitate his team anymore, which means some compositions that Blackfeather functioned in, he might not be as good anymore. However, against his sort of squishy targets that he likes to stick to, he's got a slightly bit better. But it does also mean you have to overdrive Faint of Heart, which is not something that everybody does. Generally, you overdrive B, and then it's a choice between A and C, but this might mean that you're more likely to overdrive A now. In fact, I would almost guarantee now that most overdrives on Blackfeather will likely be on his A, just because of this decaying movement speed and how useful that is in sort of sticking to a target. Catherine, dealing a little bit too much. This changes. I have my opinions about Catherine, and I don't think this is the change that I was hoping for. She's still got incredible scaling on her heroic perk. She's still going to get an echo and getting huge silences off with her blast tremor. Catherine will still be seen. A little bit less damage, but you really didn't pick Catherine for the late game damage on your Merciless Pursuit, realistically, did you? So Catherine is still going to be seen. Absolutely, 100%. Flicker got a base health increase. Again, nice for Flicker. It makes him a little bit more tanky. 100 health in the late game is pretty awesome, but Flicker's not really a late game captain. Flicker is a snowball captain, and he can be countered very easily. In the late game, he just doesn't function very well. So it's nice, but it's not going to make Flicker any more viable. Grace was the fastest. Okay, yeah, this was absolutely 100% needed. I am so glad that this has happened. It now makes her a lot weaker in the early game. And this was also 100% needed. But it does mean that if you build Shatterglass, you're going to be rewarded more. But Shatterglass was a risky item to build on Grace because of how squishy she already is. This has made Grace, I feel, a lot more balanced. Absolutely more balanced. Especially in the late game, which is where she was so powerful with his 800 heal. She's not going to be as strong in the early game now with the 0.2 movement speed nerf. Means she won't be able to get out of all of those annoying invades. I definitely think Grace is still strong, don't get me wrong. Her Holy Shield is very good, but this might actually knock her off absolute pick or ban, which makes her more flexible and more viable and open up Straft a bit more, so I like that a lot. Let's have a look. Damage down per stack of Grumpy and bonus attack speed down. So people think Grumpjaw is really strong, and he is if he gets rolling. He's very, very strong in the early game, almost ridiculously strong in the early game. But you know, like, this is warranted, I agree, but he wasn't like overwhelmingly powerful. Like, especially in professional play, we saw him start to get countered and not even picked up in drafts. So this is an interesting one. I think it's definitely warranted. His A damage was absolutely overpowered, giving him the ability to scale still by keeping it fairly similar. But yeah, his A damage was too high. I agree with that. And the bonus attack speed, again, made him really hard to deal with in the early game. Grumpjaw needed an early game nerf. He still has his position in fights, but not going to be with this. Okay, this is interesting. Perk reduced from 120 to 100. So that means that I'm guessing they're trying to make it so that he's more viable with CP as well. But he was already really viable with CP. This doesn't really solve any of the issues that I think Idris was bringing people. In fact, this has just made him more accessible. I know that Dalsey's going to be happy. The Chakram weapon damage was definitely strong, but realistically, Chakram was more of a CP scaling ability. It was more devastating on the CP build path. This has just made him a lot more threatening early game, although it might open up build paths where you don't have to go Sorrow Blade. I would be surprised if you still didn't go Sorrow Blade. I still think Sorrow Blade is the quickest way to get to here through just one item, obviously, because no other items provide 100 CP flat. But I don't think this really solved any of the issues. In fact, this just made Idris more viable. In fact, it's made him more viable with other CP items as well, especially like going straight for a Frostburn now. You don't even need to go for a Shatterglass, which makes him a little bit more viable in different CP build paths. If anything, like, it's a nerf to his damage, but realistically, I actually think this has made him stronger because he's going to peak a little bit earlier. It didn't really solve the issues that I had with Idris. I thought his CP scaling on Chakram was too high, not his weapon power scaling. Idris is still viable, so still good. In fact, probably even better, apart from that. That's interesting. That's made Krul even better. So Krul got a buff last patch, and he's going to get a buff this update as well. So I like this a lot. I think Krul is in a really unique place right now where he's good into certain compositions. This will definitely solidify him. Doesn't make him OP, but it definitely makes him a slightly more viable than he was already. He did sort of find his way creeping back into the meta. This is going to make him just a little bit better. Don't think you'll see him every game, though. He's not like he's OP from this. Well, okay. So this is good for Rona in the late game. Fortified health from Into the Fray. But how often do you actually hit Into the Fray? Not always so often. It's a minor change. I don't think it's going to make Rona viable outside of the situations that she's already viable in. Rona is picked into melee compositions. She's picked as an anti-melee carry. So it's nice, but not huge. It's just going to make her more powerful in the matchups that she's already powerful in, which is good, because I like Rona as a specific counter pick. Let's have a look at this. Holy moly. That is just devastating. That is just ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous. It's great for the lock on, right? If you're going to lock on, fine. I haven't worked out exactly the equivalent, but you've got to include ability damage in here as well. So this might equate that it sort of results in a fairly similar damage output. I'd have to do testing. I think the way they're trying to phrase this is that they want you to lock on to a target before using forward barrage. But that means you have to get into basic attack range to lock on. No longer can you just run Skye into lane and use forward barrage near a turret. That is absolutely crazy changes to Skye. And I don't know if she's going to be as viable. I actually don't even know if Skye is going to be that good anymore, because getting into lock on range, getting into basic attack range, it makes Skye more vulnerable. And the reason Skye was so good is that she could maintain range. Now she has to get up to someone to lock on to use that forward barrage. It's going to be good, I think, if you can lock on to heroes, but it definitely makes Skye a lot more risky to play. And it's actually already a high skill cap hero. It's made her even more high skill cap. So if you were kind of bad at Skye, you're going to feel like you're worse at Skye now. If you're good at Skye, you might find that you're actually going to deal more damage. I'd have to work it out, but that's actually a pretty big change to Skye, and it's already made a high skill cap hero even higher skill cap, which I think's actually not a great thing. Vox is tired of dashing so often. Okay, that's hitting the one part of Vox's kit that made him good. So the one part of Vox's kit that made him good is that he is able to use Sonic Zoom to kite effectively. Now, it's actually a small change in the late game of 0.5 seconds. I don't know if that's going to have a major change on Vox's viability. I don't think it is, personally. I still think Vox is going to be good. Sorry, it's 1 second. What am I talking about? That's 1 second. I didn't read that properly. But it's 1 second overall, which... It seems like a big deal, but I don't know how much of a big deal it's going to be. I definitely think it's going to hurt Vox. I definitely think it might open up the lane to more different styles of carries. But, yeah, unsure. The only thing, actually, I'm going to go back to Skye. The one thing that... No, I'm not going to go back to Skye. Okay, I'm done with Skye, guys. I've talked about that enough. It's only because I like Skye. I'm getting pretty salty. This is not going to hurt Vox too much. It definitely makes him slightly less viable than he was, but he's still the most mobile carry, even with this 1 second change. And the reason that Vox was good is that he was mobile, right? That's why Vox is picked. He's a mobile carry. So he still is one of the only weapon power carries in the game that has a dash. By nerfing it 1 second doesn't change the fact he's still one of the only weapon power carries in the game with a dash. So, you know, take that as you will. It's going to hurt him, but not hurt him too much. Cooldown decreased from 25 seconds to 10 seconds. Oh, wow. That is... If you've been seeing competitive play recently, that's going to make things a whole lot worse. The reason Echo was... Echo was in a unique position where it was picked on very specific heroes, like Batiste captain, it was picked on Catherine captain. It's just going to make it even more viable. So actually, almost Catherine in general has got almost even better this patch, despite being nerfed. No Wave Gauntlet. It was. I mean, who cares, right? No Wave is very specific use, and I don't think 200 gold. If you're going to buy a Null Wave Gauntlet, you were going to buy a Null Wave Gauntlet, right? 200 gold is not going to change your mind. Yeah. It's like Null Wave is very specific, so getting 200 gold off is not going to change your mind for buying it. Like I think it's going to be very specific. Poison Shiv, attack speed down. Oh, that's interesting, because the only reason Poison Shiv was still good was because it had one of the highest attack speeds in the game, compared to some of the other attack speed items, which I believe you're looking at, like Breaking Point, which I think was like 20 or something, or 15. So the only reason Poison Shiv got good in the last couple of updates is that its attack speed remained high even through the attack speed changes that happened a few updates ago. I think this is going to mean that you might see less Poison Shiv as an instantaneous buy, but it's still essentially, it's almost a necessary item because of its passive. The reduction of heals is so good right now because of the likes of Grace, Lyra, sometimes Adagio, but not so much. So I still think we'll see Poison Shiv, but it might alter build paths. I don't know if you're going to see the Poison Shiv Tension Bow build that much anymore, but Poison Shiv Sorrow Blade still remains probably pretty good. Shiver Steel... Yeah, I mean, it's cool, but Shiver Steel is an item that has got incredibly weird slot efficiency compared to every other item that you could buy in the game. Shiver Steel kind of does what a lot of heroes already do with their kit, so it's good. It's very good in specific situations, but I don't think it's that good, even despite these changes, to warrant you including it in captain builds that much. Absolutely necessary. Absolutely necessary. The 2% nerf, Tension Bow will still be built in early game situations, but this just means it's slightly less viable in the late game, which is what Tension Bow should be. Tension Bow is an early game item, it is not a late game item. So I think Tension Bow is viable on certain carries. I still think you might see the likes of Idris buy it, but this means that we're going to go back to pre-Tension Bow buff, which basically means Tension Bow was barely played. That 2% really did make a difference in the late game, so yeah. I think if you're looking for Armor Shred, Bonesaw is the way to go from this point forward. 10% is still a decent amount of PS, but it's not a huge amount. Tension Bow remains as an early game item. We'll have to see whether it works out that people decide to want to keep buying it. But if I were you from this point forward, I'd probably be thinking, especially if you were making the choice on Vox, for instance, between Tension Bow and Sorrow Blade, I'd be just saying Sorrow Blade's straight up better now. Yeah, I think that's good. Right, talents. I don't really do talents, guys. So let's go all the way up to this guy. Let's have a look at this guy. Raza is a fiery assassin, blah, 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 blah. You guys have seen him. So his A and his C deal, or put a unique debuff on the enemy, and then you essentially can then attack them, dealing crystal damage. It feels like this guy's going to be a CP assassin with the potential, depending on his base stats, to be a weapon power carry as well. I think what you'll find is he'll play a lot like Idris, I think he'll play a lot like Idris, if I'm honest, if you play him weapon power. Just heavy dashing, looking to stick to his targets. He's got so many ways to dash to targets, which is really interesting because if you build in weapon power, as long as he's got the base stats to supplement it, I mean, he could be devastating. You just dash to the back line, you blow up a target really quickly. And I guess the CP assassin form is very similar. It depends, I think, if you're either looking for burst or a sustained assassin. I'd like to look at his base stats, but I think he'll play very similarly in both weapon power and CP almost to an Idris, and I'd love to see the scalings on these abilities. So he's definitely going to be a bit like Idris here. I think he looks really cool, and those are his talents. So yeah, I'm going to do a video on this guy once I get to play him, probably tomorrow or Thursday, and I'll give you guys what I think is the best builds, but I think he's going to play very similarly to Idris. I'm going to try both weapon power and CP, so I think it'll be cool. Right, that's been it, guys. Thank you very much for watching. I'm going to get on with my CP item guide part 2, and I will see you soon.